Hi, welcome to the Daiku Podcast. I'm Gary Snow. Today, I welcome Lester Burton from Gander Games. Lester is the creator of GROK, the rules light RPG of weird gonzo science fantasy. Lester, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Gary. I appreciate it.
Well, I immediately, when I saw GROK, and I guess it's now back to 2022 when it first came out, and I was immediately smitten with the cover just grabbed me, and it just the vibes of it. And I think I remember commenting on it originally when I might have been on Reddit even, where I was like, this reminds me of Sergio Aragone's Gru the Wanderer. And for those that might not be aware of Gru, I think most people are, but maybe not. I just loved the cool detail of each like image, and there's just kind of so much going on. And GROK is similar, and that's the spoiler alert, cover of the second edition, which we'll talk about shortly. And I just love some of the artwork that came from it. And on top of that, a very cool system and world that you've built.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it, Gary. Yeah, I remember you bringing that up. I didn't when we started talking. I remember you bringing that up, and it finally clicked in my head. But yeah, that was I was familiar with Gru in passing, but it wasn't something I was like, oh yeah, I clicked immediately until you actually brought it up. So I'm glad you did.
And often, as we do on this show, we ask you, how did you get your start into tabletop role playing games? It's a crazy little hobby that not everybody learns about at a young age. So, how did you come into it?
So tabletop role playing game for me started when I think it was somewhere between 8 and 10, when I was stealing my older brother's Dungeons and Dragons books, uh, as you do, and writing characters that made no sense, that didn't follow any rules, and just being inspired by the art and figuring it out, and then convincing my friends to play games with me as I butchered the rules and inevitably made for probably not a fun time. And then my older brother, invited me to his games, and I finally got an experience of what gaming was like. I remember, so when it finally clicked for me was in the first game with him and his groups, and in his group, and he's 8 years older than me, right? And they've been playing for a while before I had, and we were playing, and we had built our characters together, so we all knew what our characters were, and my brother's character, we had all met in game, and we were having a conversation in game, and my brother's character said something, and I knew as a player it was wrong, right? I knew he was lying to me, and I called him out on it, and he goes, yeah, you know that, but your character doesn't know that. And I was like, oh man, like that was like, I get it. Right, I get it now. And since then I've just been hooked, like I want to live in the shoes of these crazy characters in these crazy worlds. So yeah, since then it's just been snowballing into many other RPG systems and playing with groups and my buddies for many years now. And then maybe 6 or so years back, I don't know when, I started dabbling in writing RPGs and game systems. I started working on like one-page systems and some very rules light things to get my feet wet, and then that eventually developed into what eventually became GROK, right? Building a system from whole cloth and trying to figure out what's the game that I want to run, I want to play in, and that's where GROK started, was figuring out the game that I want, and then luckily some other people actually want to play it too, so that was pretty cool.
And so the interesting thing to me about like your evolution of GROK and like your own design aesthetic is that like it seemed like it was systems first, and then you went built the world after. Like, so you're kind of a systems guy in a sense. Was there nothing that was kind of speaking to you?
Yeah, I like, you kind of nailed it. I love the nuts and bolts of like the systems, right? It's to me, they're all the different mechanics and things you can throw into making a game work mechanically, or all the pieces of a puzzle that you can mix and match and make fit together to bring a new picture to life, right, in the game world. And so that's the part that I really like, is filling with those bits. And so with GROK, it was finding the game that I wanted to play the most, with all the little bits and pieces and mechanics that I cherish, and make them fit into one cohesive ball of a game, right? And but there was still in the back of my mind, there's still, I want this to work for the types of games that I like to play and run, right? And the games that I like to play and run are usually a kitchen sink of a bunch of weird ideas, right? And I like to mash those together. And so that was in the back of my head, but it didn't all come together as a setting side until I started figuring out, well, how can I present this to other people and show them that they could do whatever they want. So I just threw the kitchen sink at the book too, and that's how the World of GROK kind of evolved from there.
Was there like an aha moment as far as the mechanics went, where you went, "Oh, like, damn, this works"?
Yeah, so I there's a bunch of different things that I wanted to kind of retain, mechanic wise, in terms of design, and I love polyhedral dice because tabletop games are polyhedral dice, right? And
Yeah.
so that was a big part. And so when I finally got things to really connect and mesh well between using, you know, dice as attribute scores, right, and aspects, and using a resource pool like the slots for managing damage and inventory and spells, like everything. And when those three things finally like linked together, I was like, oh man, this is it, right? Because they just it's simple on paper, which I think is a good thing, but just the fact that they tie in so well and you can use them for any type of action, any scenario, um, that's when I was like, okay, this is something worth building on.
And then what was your next step as far as like you got the mechanics and the idea of a kitchen sink, but what was the next steps as far as like inspiration for the world that you were building?
Yep. So there's a lot of pop culture and type inspiration that I pulled from that were just sitting in my head for a long time, between wizards and heavy metal and the old Lord of the Rings type cartoon movies, things like that that were always in the back of my head. But then when I was trying to put all these things together, I wanted to have it's an adventure game, right? It's an adventure role playing game, and I don't think any one game can cater to every genre, every type of experience. But I think you can have multiple settings in a similar experience, right? So that's what I was going for: is how can I accomplish multiple settings and tropes in one world? And so I started layering the world. So I had done a few years before I started really taking the work on GROK series. So I was, excuse me, I did some. I had hosted a game over about a year for some friends, and started with a game of Microscope, and we built the world. And the premise was, we had to build a world within a post-apocalyptic magic wasteland, and it evolved from there. And they took some liberties in the Microscope game and made the world dominated by hyper intelligent squirrels that flew spaceships and Roombas that gained AI sentience, things like that. So it
Yeah.
got very silly, right? But there's a lot of really good bones there, and so that ended up pulling into the GROK world a bit. But the general, the way I went about it was kind of systematic, and I wanted to fit all these genres in one place, but I didn't want to just say, all right, here's everything in one area. I wanted to segregate it a bit. That way, when if you go to one area, you have an idea of what to expect. I think that's hard sometimes as a player, is if you go to someplace brand new in a fictional world and they say, all right, anything's possible, like I have no idea what to do. Right?
Mhm.
I can do anything. I don't know what to do because I can do anything. So I think having that idea of what to expect in an area is important. And so that's kind of how I went about structuring the world. Right. So from top down, it was, space, and then there's a massive space station called the Simulacrum that domes the planet, right? That's all dilapidated now. And it's, there's an evil AI overlord who dwells there and controls it with an iron fist, and there's inspirations there from, cyberpunk and, also trouble in, being a troubleshooter and trying to overthrow the AI overlord, that kind of thing. Right. And there's a bunch of aliens there. So there's that whole cyberpunk metropolis type vibe in space, right? You
Yeah.
come down and there's floating isles that have been abandoned for long times, and their cultures that have been developing for over hundreds of years. So you have cultural exploration to figure out how different can other people be from me, and you have that kind of thing. And then Dropping down further, you have the wasteland, which is a magical wasteland where you have to survive and hunt and find oddities, and then you can dungeon delve into the crust and find relics and kill monsters and navigate mazes. You go deeper down in the hollows of the planet, and then you have this eldritch city that was spawned from a star that's in the center of the planet, right? And so you have like hellscapes and planescape and all these things meshed together. So that's kind of how I went about the world, is striating all the different settings that I wanted to, condense in the world, and then try and make it all make sense, and the interaction between them to make sense and kind of inform how the world works.
Well, part of the fun of a gonzo fantasy world is like you do get all those different aspects into it, and it's like you said, like you can almost do anything. But let me just pop on the screen here. This is your Kickstarter, so congrats on that. You had almost 1,500 backers that joined the story, and then this is joined the campaign, and so this is that. Where I mentioned I just loved the detail of it, and it just kind of felt like such a fun atmosphere. And as you go through, you can talk about the setting and the design of it. But so is it like a 28-page booklet? So I mean, like pretty light, but super cool art. And how did you originally? Is it Mateus or Mateo? Sorry,
I'm pretty sure it's Mattias.
Mattias. Oh, sorry, Mateus.
Yeah, so I met him on I think it was Reddit, and I reached out to him and said, "Hey, I think it was what ended up becoming the cover." I said, "Hey, this is fantastic. Can I use some of your art for this game I'm writing?" And we started a dialogue, and we started working on a few commissions and licensing some of his existing work, and which honestly helped a lot, because having art was like, okay, I have art. I better do something. Better do something with this game, right? So it helped. Oh yeah, his artwork is fantastic. I absolutely adore his work.
Yeah, just it's a fantastic. And how did you and this is mechanic nerd time. So like, because I dabble in systems and all that kind of stuff too. So you go from D4 to D12, and then there's the big jump to D20. And as like a mechanics minded person, I'm always like, oh, okay, like D14,
Sure,
D16, and D18. And so I know that DCC has solved that. Were you tempted to kind of pull in any of that?
Yep, I absolutely was. And I didn't, for simplicity's sake. Ultimately, in this system, I didn't think it was necessary to go all the way from the D12 to D20. And in mine, it's the attributes go from D4 to D12, and that's their max. And the D20 is really just used for table rolling and random generation. So that's how I skirted it.
Yeah, clean delineation between those two, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that's always good. And then I guess as we have it up here, we can get into it a little bit later. But just for since we're here, talk to us about your task resolution.
Okay, so task resolution is, excuse me, it's universal, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're attacking something or defending or trying to jump a ledge or trying to convince a mecha lizard that you're his friend. It's all the same thing. So basics of it are, there are dice size that are assigned to your attributes. There are 3 main attributes: physical, mental, and social. And depending on what you're trying to do, you decide what one of those attributes is most applicable, right? And whatever one is, that determines the die size that you're going to be rolling. So if I'm going to be convincing a mecha lizard that I'm their friend, it's probably going to be social, because I'm going to be trying to talk to this lizard robot. And if I have a D6 in that score, then I'd be rolling a D6. And you'd roll against an outcomes table. So in 1E in the Zine edition, there are that outcome table is shown there. So anything 1 through 4 is a no and, 5 through 9 is a yes, and then 10 plus is a yes and. And so, and everything in the system is pretty narrative. Aside from attributes having dice, everything is narrative. There's no +1s, -1s, anything like that. So anytime something in the game world or on your character sheet would influence the odds of whatever your action is, you get advantage or disadvantage. which means you roll another die if you have advantage and you take the higher score, or you roll another die and you take the lower score if you have disadvantage. So that's the basics of it. And then you're rolling against that outcomes table, and the outcomes are going to be narrative as well, right? So if you have an outcome and you convince the mecha lizard that you're their friend and you guys are pals now, then for someone else's next action, that's something they can mechanically pull from to influence their rolls or your later rolls, right? So it all rolls together.
Well, I love an elegant system, and I think you pulled this one off quite nicely. I'm going to remove this from the screen, and let's now kind of shift gears and go, okay, so you had the success, 1,500 backers. Did you immediately go, okay, what's the next steps for GROK?
Not immediately. So when I first put it up on Kickstarter, the intention was to get enough people to buy the game to where I could afford to get a copy for myself without having to pay for it. So it was pretty low bar, because ultimately I wrote it for me and I wanted the game, right? And I put all this work into it. I just wanted to print it, right,
Yeah.
and have a copy for myself. And then enough people liked it, and near the end of fulfillment of it, a bunch of people were reaching out saying, "I love this game. I love what you're doing. I really like it, but I want more." I was like, "Well, do I have more?" And then I started working on it, and I did have more, right? But the trick is, I mean, you mentioned the goal is to have an elegant system that is concise and efficient and it works, right? And you can grok it immediately and work with it. And so a lot of people asking, I want more is great. But in developing it, I didn't want to just throw more on the page, right? Because that's against the whole idea of the game, right? so I going about it was tricky in that I wanted to give more context, more tools, greater explanations, and refine the system, and give more inspiration, but not bloat it. Not make it to where it goes against the core idea of the game, which is to have a universal game that works for any kitchen sink you throw at it, but that you can just run and not have to think about it, and then it gets out of your way. So it was tricky development wise for the second edition, but we'll see if other people agree that I nailed it or not.
Are there any kind of big structural changes to that core element, or just like the core is the core, and then like maybe there's a few tweaks?
So the core is the core for the most part. There's a few refinements. So the outcomes table was tweaked a little bit to add a few other bases in there, a few other basic outcomes in there. One thing I didn't touch on when I was talking about the basic mechanics is in the zine it was called effort, right? To where you can basically incur a condition, something bad happens to your character directly, and then you get to add dice, right? You get to add the values of dice. So that's a big thing, and so there's that aspect. Now there's exploding dice that are like base in the base rules for 2e. So now there's more. It's easier for characters that have like a very low die score in their tribute to succeed, as opposed to having to use effort to make that happen. So there's little refinements like that you probably wouldn't notice right off the rip, but that have come out through a lot of playing, a lot of feedback. And then, so a basic refinement aside, there's tons more art. There's a lot more tables and like refinement of how equipment and vehicles and companions, things like that work. And then the biggest growth and expansion is in like the GM side. So there's a lot of world building tools and how you can structure your world and flesh that out in a way that's practical at the table, right? That's playable and actionable by players. And then I'm really proud of the solo system that's built into it too, because that was another aha moment when I finally put it together, because it uses the exact same action resolution system as players, but for solo rules and generating the world and structuring an emergent plot at the same time, right? And that's been really fun. and it's been fun because I get to play the game. I get to play test it myself. So,
And
nice.
and one of the benefits of your system being like predominantly like player facing roles is to take that step into the solo world. It's not that big of a leap.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Let me pop on the new second edition. So I guess when are you thinking about launching here? I know we're kind of getting a sneak preview here, but when are you thinking about launching GROK second edition?
So everything is mostly done. Printing quotes and everything are mostly done. So it's now just negotiating with distributors and publishers, which is almost done. So my goal from when I was telling myself what is the goal, I was hoping to get it to Kickstarter April. It might end up pushing a couple months, but it will absolutely be this year. Hopefully the first half of this year.
Now, I have to say, there's a lot of folks, including myself, that it's not unheard of to just like put it out on Kickstarter or BackerKit and go, okay, I'll finish it once it's funded. But
yeah,
you, to your credit, you're locking this in so that it's going to be ready to go pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean and I realized that. But when I did 1E, it was mostly done, and then everybody liked it. Like, man, I got to make this as good as I can, and I had to rework it and then kick it out. But for this, yeah, I wanted it to be done because I want people that are, kickstarting, that are funding it, to know exactly what they're getting. I want that transparency, and people that buy it to know this is the game I want, and not say I hope this is the game I want. Right? I want them to know up front. So that's kind of the goal.
Cool. And then I saw in the credits that you've added some artists alongside. So from like the design perspective, how did you go, okay, I have to combine different artists into this because it's not just one in the art direction? How did you approach that?
With a lot of hesitancy, I guess. So Thaddeus is fantastic, and his art is obviously a big part of the GROK aesthetic and the world. And but I wanted to tie some other artists in there that have different specialties, whether it be character development or perspectives or movement, portraying movement, as opposed to like large portrait style stuff that Mattias really excels at. And so I wanted to capture all those different types, but have the same general aesthetic. And so it was tricky to find artists that have the same general look and vibe, that everything meshes together and it feels cohesive, but I can play on their different strengths as far as artists go. So yeah, I have Grant Morrison and Jesse Turner. Jesse Turner doing the character specific art, and then Morrison doing the cover, and then the map for the world. Well, map, but it's mostly just I call it a map, but it's a world view of the different striations of the planet.
Was there any breakthroughs as far as like developing the world? Like I know that is there like an internal campaign or like more detail as far as the world itself?
For the world itself, there was a lot of that was fleshed out as far as how things interact and the structure of the world in 1E. One of the, I guess you're touching on, is one of the big asks was, I gave some tools for generating the world in 1E, but there wasn't a lot. And some of that was intentional because I don't want people to have to read page into pages of the lore to understand what the world has to offer. So in this one, I have a lot of GM tools to generate worlds and structure it, but then there's a full-fledged campaign written in 2E. And that one was written by myself and William Galaney, who's a fantastic author. And the intention there was to have a campaign that pushes characters to go and trance around the entire planet, right? To go to all the different areas and to explore it and see what it has to offer. So that was the goal there, is to provide a fleshed out campaign with the game, but also give the push to explore everything the world has to offer.
Cool. And then I was looking at your potential what you're going to be offering, and it's like a pretty full suite here. You've got the expanded setting, as we just kind of talked about with campaign, solo rules, which we can delve into shortly here. But there's also the GM toolkit, GM screen, pre-gen character pad, coloring book, custom dice set, and on top of all that, you're putting an SRD out there for others to play in your world.
Yep. Yeah. So the SRD is going to be an open license, which is going to be the core of the system, right? And with the intention that people can make whatever games they want with it and do whatever they want with their games that are using as the basis. So I think that's big. I think I pulled a lot of inspiration from a lot of different disparate systems and worlds to make this game. And I think that's part of what makes the RPG community fun, is that so many people are picking each other's brains for cool ideas. And some people have already done that for the Zine edition. And honestly, it's a huge honor to be a part of other people's systems. So,
well, as I'm flipping through this I apologize for those listening and not being able to view the screen, but if you want to check it out, it'll be on YouTube and Spotify video. And just some of the artwork, I mean, obviously, as Heavy Metal, Mobius, Sergio Argani's Gru, Luca Reyes has a similar style to Mobius, and you can kind of see that just laid thick throughout all the layout, which is just awesome. I just love every aspect of it. As far as adding all those other kind of bits and bobs for the Kickstarter, were you hesitant? Because you seem the fact that you're preparing this game fully before it goes out to Kickstarter makes me think you are a very diligent person. Were you ever going, I don't know if I want to add dice or this or that, or because there's a lot of variables there?
Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. So I have an engineering mindset, right? So I get insanely pedantic about details, and it drives me nuts. But yeah, so there's been a lot of prep and figuring out, logistics and what do I want to offer, what makes sense. And there's a lot of different, it's complex, right? Because depending on where you're shipping, where you want to fulfill things, where you're distributing from, those are all important things to consider in terms of taxes and then tariffs and VAT. And those are all big deals, right? You have to prepare for those type of things and make sure that, people who are buying a set of dice aren't going to have an extra $20 they got to spend on a set of dice that nobody expected, right? I don't want anyone to experience that. So I'm trying to do my due diligence, make sure all my I's are crossed and my T's are dotted, right? To make sure that is accounted for. And a big part of that is trying to find ideally a distributor that can fulfill worldwide, and all those things are streamlined. So it's a single portal. Everything's up front as far as taxes and shipping fees and yada, yada. Right. And then distribution is simplified. So the fun part was building the game. Now I'm neck deep in logistics and the project management side, which is the unfun part, but hopefully it'll be worth it for the people actually Kickstarter and get the game.
Well, it's looking great. And I'm at page 178, 179. And how many extra pages did we go from? So you're at 200, and it's going to be a hardcover, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And is this 200 and maybe even more by the are you still fiddling with it?
No, it's pretty set in stone at this point. I'm very happy with the layout and everything. I think it might be a little more than 200 depending on how you count your pages, because there's
the cover missing and a few other.
Yeah, there's cover missing, and then there's the end sheets. I'm going to do printed end sheets where they're useful tables on both ends, right? I always think that's a nice touch, so I'm going to make sure and do that. But yeah, right around 200 is about where it's going to land no matter what.
Well, that's cool. I'm going to remove this from the screen. I'm going to pop on some of your artists here just to give them a little bit of a shine if we can. So we've got Matthias Doodles Kelly. Ugh. Doodle Skelly. That makes more sense than Doodle Skelly.
Yeah.
And just to kind of scroll through here, you can see some of the work. Looks fantastic, just as you would expect to see, as we've seen on in GROK. And yeah, just love the art style. And how is it working with artists? I know, like, even from an engineer mind, connecting with artists, how easy is it for you to speak the language?
It's not too bad. So I have an artist streak in me too. I do art and music and a bunch of other endeavors. So
Oh, wow, you're
uh,
a jack of all trades, and yeah, that's good.
yeah, unfortunately, my sleep deprivation is a big part of it. So it's great. I mean, they're all the artists I've been working on this with, including Christopher McClanahan, who does layout, and he's a fantastic artist as well, and game designer. I mean, they're just all. I think I'm just incredibly lucky in that I found artists who fit the aesthetic, that do amazing work, and that are just good people. Right?
Yeah.
That's probably the best part, is finding people you enjoy working with.
And this is Dan Morrison, dark underscore mechanic on Instagram, and just flipping through some of these. And it seems that he does a little bit more black and white. Are there color versions like for GROK inside, or did you just use some of the black and white? Everything looked very colorful.
Oh yeah, everything is very colorful and vibrant. So Dan Morrison did the front and back cover, and then the world diagram or map. Both of those are full color, similar colors throughout. That's used throughout the book. And so in my mind, Dan does a fantastic job with movement, right, in the similar type style. And so that's why I wanted to use him for the cover, to show the movement of like the beast with the mecha arm and the rider, and as an homage to the first cover, which had a giant beast and a rider in a landscape, and then be able to incorporate some movement into the world map at the same time. So that's what went there. And yeah. Jesse kills it with characters. Like you'll scroll through this, and his character development is amazing.
Yeah, that's for sure. Good action poses, and just like the character design is excellent on all of them. Good coloring and movement. Yeah, fun. Very cool. Yeah, well, it's hard to find different artists that kind of all can kind of work together and be in a cohesive environment. And so, congrats on you, for you to be able to pull that off. That's not always easy to do.
Yeah, agreed. I appreciate it.
Okay, so I'll have for sure links in the video description and below, as all the usual places. So what is next steps for you? Is, like you said, you're crossing those T's and dotting those I's and making sure that everything's going out. And do you have like a Kickstarter? You're going to use Kickstarter, the game?
Yep, it's gonna be through Kickstarter. I haven't launched the pre-release page or anything like that yet, because I want to get my my distribution lined up first, because there's a few that I'm negotiating with that could help with a marketing push, depending on who I end up going with. So I want to get that under wraps first and get that announced, so the initial launch is as successful it can be. So I'm not gonna. So I don't want to get my. I don't want to get too ahead of myself yet, but yes, it'll be through Kickstarter.
Well, exciting times. And then as far as the community that's surrounded it, any kind of big plans for like with the SRD and any kind of like game jams or adventure jams in the future?
I haven't gotten there yet, so that's kind of I haven't got there yet. But as far as future stuff, there's going to be the website that's going to be launched. It's going to have character generator and SRD and the open license and things like that. So there's some tools and other things in mind that I want to implement to encourage game jams and co-development of new games, but nothing formal yet.
Cool. Well, Lester, I'm super excited to see the 2E when in fact it does finally launch here, and I'm sure it's going to be a big hit. And once again, just congrats on the success of GROK 1, and looking forward to GROK 2.
Thanks, Gary. It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot for your time.